All right, so welcome to week 3. You guys have survived the hardest week 1 and 2. A lot of material in there. If you have not completed all the simulations, if you have not done the live labs, you need to get in there and do them. Week 1 and 2, that first chapter sets the tone for everything we're going to do. So if you have questions, you don't understand something, you need to work on it now, because 6 weeks from now, it's going to be significantly too late. This week, we finish up chapter 2. What we start looking at is we have that network infrastructure, that documentation, and we have a couple more simulations and things we're going to work on. Well, what I would like to do in here, and we're recording it for the class, is we're going to do some of these things. Not only are you going to get to do the simulations, but I want you to experience what it's like to do it on a live computer. So we're going to install ZenMap, and we're going to look at it and try to run it. And we're going to try to install Ubuntu, and we're going to get a virtual machine up and running on that computer that's sitting in front of you. So everybody else can watch along. Yes, you do it as a simulation. A simulation is great. It is not as great as doing it in person. So what I would encourage you, and certainly there's no points, but if you're watching this and you're in the online section, try this. You might find that you really like Ubuntu or some of the other things that we're going to look at. But we have some steps we need to do to get there. And so I'm going to go through some of those. And so I need you to work along with me in class. Raise your hand and tell me to slow down, because sometimes I'll probably try to get ahead of you. It is recorded so you can see what we're going to do. But the first thing I'm going to start on, and we're going to start on this one because of the length of time it takes to download a operating system. And so I don't know if we'll even get it downloaded in class today with all of us downloading. Here's one of the things we talk about in network architecture is, yes, we have a fairly fast connection to the outside world. Once you start splitting that up, so imagine a garden hose, and you get a whole bunch of those Y connectors, and you start plugging Ys into Ys into Ys, and you have 10 or 12 or 15 different connections, suddenly that's going to be significantly slower or less volume out of it, because you have a pipe and it's a finite size and you've started to divide it up. So if you will bear with me here, we're going to actually get the very first thing we're going to start downloading is we're going to go to Ubuntu and we're going to grab software from Ubuntu. So it's very similar to this lab simulation, except in this case, everything may not work like you think. It's going to take some troubleshooting. So I'm going to go to Ubuntu, and it's ubuntu.com. So I would like everybody here to this page with me. I am going to look at the download. So I'm going to go download. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of different options here. There's Ubuntu Desktop. There's Ubuntu Server. What we need right now, and in fact, if you notice, there's Ubuntu for Raspberries. There's Intel NUCs. So setting up here, and I know nobody online can see this, but what I'm holding up, it looks like about the size of a mouse. That's a Raspberry Pi, and I don't know if anybody's experimented or played with them. This is an older one. I have a newer one I'll bring in and show you guys. The whole computer is this tiny little board right here. That's it. These are really, really handy for a lot of applications. What we're going to do with them in this lab is you'll notice there's some TVs sitting in here and in the other room. These are going to be the video driver for this TV to run the interface for the security cameras that you don't see or haven't maybe noticed yet, so that we can see everything that goes on in this lab from one room to the other. It's a long-winded project that I should have had done a couple weeks ago, and much like you guys, we run out of time, and one of the problems we discovered in this computer lab, there's not a lot of free time in here. So people get a little cranky if they're trying to lecture and I'm in here punching down cables or making a bunch of noise. So Ubuntu can be run on almost any device. If you're really tired of your Mac, don't do this because you'll get in trouble for it. But if you really don't like your Mac and you're like, man, I want something different, you can actually wipe out your hard drive on your Mac and run Ubuntu on it. We're going to show you, using some virtual tools, how you can run multiple operating systems on a computer. And so that's where we're going to head to. But the first piece I need is we need to get Ubuntu. And so I am going to click on this one here, the 20.04 long-term support. All right. So it should, when you click on that, start downloading here, and it should show up in the left-hand side of your computer screen if you're using Chrome. Has everybody got it downloading? Okay. So this is going to take, and notice it went from 15 minutes to 2 hours as more of you started doing that. It is a very large file. So I think this one, it's almost 3 gigabytes of size. So it is a fairly large file. So in the meantime, while that is downloading, we're going to get another tool. And what we're going to get is the tool that we're going to use for virtual images. So there are a lot of virtual hypervisors out there. The particular one we're going to use, we like it because it's free. It's not the best one out there by any means. I would not use it in a production environment, so I'm not going to put servers on it and start doing that. But it's a great test environment for me to use on my own computer. So I need you to go to virtualbox.org. virtualbox.org. So virtualbox.org is a hypervisor. It's a virtualization system that we can use. They have got a new version. I don't know what's going to happen in this lab when we download 6.1. This could be exciting. This could be a crap show. Based on 2020 so far, I'm willing to bet we're going to have issues and have to revert to an older version. That's fine. That's part of what you learn in here is how do I troubleshoot and how do I do this. So let's click on the big blue box that says Download VirtualBox. So now we should be downloading 2 pieces of software here in just a second. So over here on this right here, it says, where am I going to put it? It's essentially asking. So I can run VirtualBox on Windows. I can run it on a Mac OS X, on a Linux, Solaris. I'm going to click Windows. And when I click Windows, now it starts downloading over here an executable file. It is obviously not as big as Ubuntu, the entire operating system, so it should only take a couple of minutes for it to download. And I know it's hard for you guys to see the screen. It may be easier on the other ones. So it is actually now downloaded VirtualBox. Meanwhile, Ubuntu is chugging along and lying to me and says it's only 7 minutes along, but we'll see. So now that I've downloaded VirtualBox, I'm going to actually run that VirtualBox. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder. So if I don't have it down at the bottom, I can find it in my over here in the Windows Explorer. If you don't know how to get to Windows Explorer, I'm going to give you a shortcut for it. Hold the flying Windows key down and hit E. And it'll pop up. The flying Windows key and E, and it will pop up. Over on the left should be downloads, and the very top thing, or next to the top, should be my VirtualBox. The very top one is that downloaded file that I'm working on for Ubuntu. I'm going to click this VirtualBox to install it. And I will move this window over so you can see it. It popped up in the other side. Because we've had older versions on some of these computers, yours may look slightly different. And if you're doing this on your own computer, it will look a little different because we're installing on an existing environment. But for the most part, all we're going to do is click Next. That's the good part. We can use their defaults to do this. So I'm going to click Next to install it. When I get to this custom setup, I am not going to change anything. I am going to leave everything alone for now. And I'm going to click Next. I'm not going to change any of these. I'm going to leave all of those alone, and I'm going to click Next. Here's where it's going to be ugly for a minute. So if you're doing something else, it's going to interrupt you because it's going to grab that network interface and change it just slightly. So I need you to say yes. And then I'm going to click Install. And it's going to take it a couple of minutes to churn and install that. My guess is you'll get a little chirp and it'll have a box that pops up that looks like this that says, do I really want to install this? This is Windows UAC, User Access Control. This is just confirming, so I'll say yes. And so because we're reinstalling it, you'll see things up there like removing existing files, removing shortcuts, removing those kinds of things. So now it's sliding away, it's writing, changing, making things happen. And then it says, do I want to start this after installation? I'm going to let it start. So I'm going to click Finish because I want to see what it looks like when it's done. And what it looks like, or should look like, is this. So has everybody in class got it installed and has something that looks like this up there? I can't tell. If you don't wave a hand, tell me I don't know. Do you guys have the Oracle VirtualBox that looks like this? Yes. Okay. Good. All right. My guess is you probably don't have these things up here. And I'm going to actually make them go away right now. I'm going to go Remove. And I'm going to delete all the files. I'm going to remove and delete all the files. Because I don't want any up there to start with. Chunk, remove all the files. So we should have VirtualBox that looks like this. It's plain, it's blank, there's not anything on it. Is everybody along with me? Okay, so yeah, if you have anything in there, just hit delete. Yeah, download, just hit cancel for now. But delete whatever's in there. So if there is anything in there, click remove, yep. And we're going to get rid of it. So you should have a clean slate on VirtualBox that looks like this one. Remove all files. Delete every piece of file in there. Because it's just taking up space that we don't need. So you should have a blank space up there. So this is what... Delete all files. Delete all files. You don't need them on there. One of the disadvantages of these computers in the lab, they have some fairly small hard drives. It makes it a little tougher on here, so we can't put a ton of these in here. So everybody, it looks like, is very similar in place. I'm waiting on Ubuntu to download. Has anybody finished Ubuntu yet? Yours has? Sweet. As more and more people get that downloaded, it will work better. Here is what I'm going to, well, let me wait till everybody gets it done. Because the default place it downloads, we clean out on these computers on a regular basis, so we're going to have you move it to a different location after we get it downloaded. So let me get this downloaded. So you have no, it is not done downloading. Go back to your download page. It should be showing that it's still downloading. So you're doing it in Firefox, and the download is actually up there. So you may need to restart. So it's showing it's partly there. All right. All right. So here's my next step that I'm going to do in here before Ubuntu actually finishes. We can do this. So we're kind of going to jump around a little bit. So, Gavin, are you with me? Yeah. You got Ubuntu, or you got your VirtualBox? All right, so I am going to click the New button, or as I call it, the blue Reese's button. That blue Reese's button is going to create a new container for our operating system we're going to install. So the blue Reese's, we click New. And I'm going to call it whatever I want to call it. Cleverly, I'm going to call this Ubuntu. Now, I'm going to make a space, and I'm going to do something that I will tell you never to do anywhere else except here. One of the things that Ubuntu is really good about is security. If you forget your username and password in Ubuntu, there is no option except going out and completely reinstalling it, wiping it out, and reinstalling it. Windows Server, I can hack my way around and grab a username and redo things. Ubuntu does not have that option. Here's what I'm going to suggest you do. I'm going to go ahead and put in here, I'm going to type my username and the password I'm going to use. And here's the password I suggest you use. It's kind of tucked behind here because we have the TV in the way now, so it's harder to see. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. So the password I'm going to suggest you use, that way we're all on the same password and anybody can get in there, is Peru 2019 ! So I'm going to actually type it here. And so I'm going to call this one. So just so I know what it is, I'm going to say it's CMIS, and I'm going to call it Peru 2019 ! You can choose not to do this. You can think I'm going to remember that. That's fine. I'm going to tell you it's probably not going to work. You're going to forget it unless you've written it down somewhere. So I just do this as a cheat method when I'm doing these virtuals, especially for in here. In a live production environment where we're doing servers with this, you would not do this, ever. You would lose your job immediately, quickly. All right, so the other thing I noticed down here, when I type Ubuntu, this program's pretty smart, and it already sets up some of the environment for me, saying, oh, I see you're going to do Linux, and it's Ubuntu 64-bit. Look at yours very carefully, and I want you to pull down where it says Ubuntu 64-bit, and I want to make sure that you see 64-bit, that you have that option. Does anybody just have 32-bit showing? They do not have the option for 64 bits. You guys are all lucky and you all do that. Okay. So at home or on your other... All right, that's that. As long as it says the number 64 in there, you're fine. So here is what happens. In the lab, I think we've got them all fixed. On your own computer, you're going to probably run into this. For a variety of strange reasons, almost no computer maker enables virtualization at the motherboard level, and you are going to have to turn it on in the BIOS or the UEFI, whichever version of computer you have. When your computer first starts up and it's got these little screens that says go into setup, you're going to have to go into there and search around to find whatever HP or Dell or AMD or whoever you're buying this from calls virtualization. And there's about 400 different names for it. Every computer maker does it differently to make life miserable. But for whatever reason, we find that it's turned off by default. It makes things a little more compatible, I think, for Windows, and they just turn it off. We're kind of nerdy, so we're going to use it. So if you come into here and it only has 32-bit versions, what that's saying is virtualization is not enabled at the motherboard. In this case, I think everybody here has it enabled. I hope. We worked at the lab to do that, but every time it does a BIOS update or something, some of those times those will change. So I am now ready to make that container for that Ubuntu to run. It's set to type is Linux, version is Ubuntu. I am now going to click Next. You do not need to click the expert mode. You're going to click Next. The next piece is memory size. And so this is dependent on the computer that you are on, what you want to do with it. In most cases, these computers in the lab have at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that's what this one shows. Well, the default size they're showing you is pretty small and probably too small. So if you can do it and stay in the green, we would like to bring this to 4096. So that little slider needs to slide over to roughly 4096. That's 4 gigabytes of RAM. On bigger systems with more memory, so for example, on some of these computers in here, you may find that you have 16 gigs. There's even one floating in this lab with 32. You can allocate more random access memory to that. 4 gigabytes or 4096 megabytes is probably enough for everything we're going to do. And you certainly want to stay in the green area. So now we've changed our memory. Now we have to decide how our hard disk is going to function. So the default says we're going to create a virtual disk. There is a lot of advantage, especially on these computers that don't have a lot of hard drive space, to do that virtually. But if you're doing this in a production environment, you're probably pointing it off at a SAN, not even local to you, and so you're going to use some of the other options. You're going to say, I'm going to either use a existing or I'm going to use so. But for our purposes, luckily, we're going to create a virtual one, and so we can click Next. The type then, we'll leave it as a VDI, but depending on your infrastructure in a business, you may change that, or if you have other specific needs. And I'm going to click Next again. Storage size, so we're creating a virtual pool of storage on there. And again, because these are fairly small, we want it to be dynamically allocated. In other words, if I'm not using all of the 10 gigabytes or whatever size I pick, it's not going to be locked away for anybody else to use. So we're going to say dynamically allocated. And then we get to this screen. This screen says, where is it stored and how big is it? And here's the problem. The recommendation from the VirtualBox, and I was curious to see if the latest version changed this, is not big enough to actually install and run Ubuntu safely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little slider and I'm going to move it to like 15 gigabytes. I don't need to go much more than that, but 10 is a little small. So I'm going to come over here and somewhere close to 10. So I've got it at 16. That's fine. It doesn't need to be exact. Somewhere a little north of 10 gigabytes. So I just drag my slider over. In this case, I'm at 16. You can actually put your cursor in there and type in 15 gigabytes if you really wanted to. But you need more than 10 gigabytes. That's the key point. And I am going to then click Create. So now I've created that container. I've built my computer. So in the same term of if I went and got all the parts, I've just now built a computer and I've done this. So how many of you have Ubuntu now downloaded? Mine finally finished. I know a couple of you. Has everybody got Ubuntu downloaded and it should be a .iso file. Do not double click on it. I'll tell you that now. How many are still downloading? Anybody? A couple of you? All right, I'm going to go through this step really quickly, and then we'll come back for those of you that are still downloading. So I'm going to go back to my Windows Explorer. So Windows E, and I'm going to click on Downloads, and I'm going to see that I have got this file called Ubuntu desktop.iso. That's a disk image file. So in other words, it's a copy of what the CD or the DVD would be. But we clean out that downloads folder. And so I don't want to put it in the downloads folder and leave it there. I'm going to drag it over here. I'm just going to go zoom, and I'm going to put it in Documents. And so now it disappeared, and it should show up over in Documents. So now when I look over here in Documents, I have my Ubuntu file laying over in Documents. Not hard, but it's just I just want to make sure I put it in there. What you do not want to do is double click, because Windows will actually try to open that ISO file and it will mount it as a drive. And I don't want that. It's going to make my life more complicated here in the near future. All right. I've moved my file. I know it's in my documents. I can find it again. I'm going to come back over here to Ubuntu. So I'll go through this a couple of times. So if you haven't got yours downloaded yet, you'll be fine. So I'm going to click the Start button. And so when I do that, it's going to grind away a little bit. And unfortunately, it always pops up on the other window over here. But this is what I need here. So it says Select Startup Disk. Oh. Because it's just like a brand new computer. You're starting it up. There's nothing in it. It doesn't know what to do. I need to find where I put that ISO file, and I need to plug that in. So this little folder icon, I'm going to click that. And when I click that folder icon, I'm going to get an optical disk selector. And so I need to click Add. So notice I've got a couple of them already added in there, but they're not the ones I want. We want that 20.04, so I need to click Add. And it's not in Downloads. We put it in Documents so it doesn't get deleted. And at the bottom of Documents, I find it and I can click Open it. I have now chosen it. All right. So I can select Choose. And so now, when that virtual computer, when I push the power button, it sees that ISO file as a startup, or where it's going to try to install from. All right, I'm going to go through it a couple of times here, because I know that some people, this is the most confusing part. So I'm going to click Cancel and get back out of here. So the other way to get to it, so notice it says up here under Storage. Under Storage, it says a couple of items. So one, it's got this VDI that says, hey, I made it 16 gigabytes. But it also has one that says optical drive, and it's empty. I can also get to the same place by clicking on that optical drive and choosing an image that way. And again, I have to go to Add if it weren't already attached. You have to manually attach it the first time. And so this is probably the hardest piece of that, getting that to work. So I'm going to click Add. I'm going to go to Documents where I moved it to, and I'm going to click that ISO file right there. And now I'm ready to start. So now, all right, is it finished downloading, and did you put it in the My Documents folder? So that's, if it says file not found, you're in kind of the wrong spot. So you found it. All right, click open. Oh, you're in quick access. Do not do it. So click on, did you move it from downloads? And you put it into documents? Oh, you put it somewhere else. So click, you can do it the other way if it doesn't want to show up on the quick access. Go to my PC or this PC. All right. And click C drive when you get down there. Scroll down a little bit. Go to C drive. Nope, C drive. Double click that. And then go down to users. Double click that. And then it should be CMIS lab. I'll cancel that real quick. Why is it not letting me in there? Try student. Maybe we listed it under student. Double click that, and now go into documents from there. Did you double click on it at some point? Because I am not, all right. So just do it. All right, hang on. Let me go back to you here in a second. We'll get everybody else kind of where they're at. Everybody else has found it except for Chris. All right. Yours is still downloading? So when you ran it before, okay, close that. Just click, okay. Click OK. Yeah, you got to click OK to tell it to turn it off. All right, so if you're probably at the same, all right. So if I don't pick a disk that it can actually read, when you start it, it's going to get a blank screen, a black screen, and say, no bootable medium found. So what it's really saying is, it's the same as I've got a computer that you try to start it up and you don't have any hard drive in there or anything for it to read. So you've got to point it to the right location. So let me start this, and then I'll try to see if I can catch everybody up here real quick. All right, so I've selected, so I added Ubuntu, and I've chosen it because I can have multiple options in here. And I'm going to choose it. When I do that and then I start this, that's probably my other window. Hang on a second. So no, it should say optical drive, and it should have that ISO image there, and then it should have a controller port here that says that's where I'm going to store it at. So now, if I start this, see which window it pops up in real quick. So if I did not do that correctly, that's what I get. I get this no bootable medium found. And that's because it can't find that. So I've got to restart this and try to see if I can point it in the correct location. So I'm going to close. And I don't want to save it. I want to power it off. If I save it, it's going to pop up exactly the same spot it was in. It's like closing the lid of a laptop. You turn it back on, it's at the same spot. I need to actually power it off. So now if I click start, see if I can force it through. So now it says, oh, okay. So now you're going to see some action going on here in just a second. I'll show you. All right, so let me come around and see where everybody's at. That's Ubuntu. And now it's starting to boot up, and it's starting to install itself. All right, so you're at you have it in Documents. You've chosen it, but it's not selected there. So click that right there on Optical Drive, and click Choose. Choose. Yep. And then go to Documents where it's at, and click OK, and then Open. All right, now yours should be ready to start. All right, you're ahead of me. You managed to get the slowest downloading computer in the world, apparently. Failed to open a session for... Interesting. See what the details say. Look real quick where it says details. All right, so even though it says it's enabled, yours is not got virtualization enabled. So I can't show you how to do that just for a weird reason. So you'll have to hang out for a second so I can show you how to do it on an individual computer, but I can't put it up on the screen because you can't see the operating system. All right, did you find your missing? So it's there in quick access. Did you delete it accidentally? Oh, you double clicked on it. Don't double. Okay, hang on. Don't double click on it. It's no longer located in. So you may have to download it again. It's apparently somehow got deleted when you did this. So download that. With one person downloading it, shouldn't take too long to do. All right. You're an install. You're an install. You're my problem child, but that's... So yours on that computer, why it's telling you that is virtualization was not turned on that motherboard. So we're going to have to restart the computer, get into the BIOS, and figure out why it's not turned on or why it's not catching that. So hang on a second for that. If you can have the choice, just save it in Documents. We just come through and clean out that folder. All right. So when you get to this point, if you try it, it's just going to be a temporary version. What we would like to do is click Install Ubuntu. And this is where it's going to be a little scary, a couple of the way they phrase things. So I'm going to click Install. And you can pick any keyboard layout and any language you want. I'm going to pick US English just because that's the one I'm sort of fluent in. And I'm going to click Continue. I want a normal installation, so there is a minimal that makes it smaller. I'm also going to say, you know what, I will download updates while I'm in there. In this case, I don't need all the third-party stuff, but you can actually select it. It doesn't hurt anything. If you're installing this on your own computer, it's probably not a bad thing to do. And I'm going to click Continue. And it churns away because it's going to go do all the updates for Ubuntu. This is where the screen gets scary. So I'm going to double check. Yep, I'm in the VirtualBox. Because it says erase disk and install Ubuntu. You're not erasing your hard drive on the computer. You're erasing that virtual hard drive you created. But if I would pop this in as a CD in my computer and I'm installing it that way, that would be really, really scary. So I'm just going to say I'm going to do that. Install now. And it's going to say, if you continue, these are going to be changes. This is saying what it's doing. And again, I'm going to double check. Yep, I'm in Ubuntu. It's installing it to the disk that I created. I'm going to click Continue. And then it's going to ask some questions. And it's already figured out, hey, we're in Central Time in Chicago. So I'm going to click Continue. This is where I get to create that username and password that we created earlier. So I said my username is CMIS, my password is Peru 2019 exclamation exclamation. So I can put in my own name. That's not critical yet. And Brad VirtualBox, it's okay. My username, I'm going to do the CMIS. And the password is the Peru 2019. And we're going to click continue. So now it's going to churn away, copy some files. All right, so now let me see where everybody's at here while that's churning away. You're re-downloading. You're marching your way through. So click continue. Don't be scared. Yeah, unless you want to change languages on it. You're still downloading because for some reason yours is really slow to download. And yours, do you have anything open on your computer you don't need right now? All right, so hit the delete key and hold it down while this restarts. And see if we can get this one. I'm trying to remember how this one will go in. We have like 12 different models. You may have to tap it as it restarts. There you go. All right. So somewhere in here, you have to find something that's called virtualization. So click the right arrow key. And it's in this screen, one of those items in there. So I think it's under CPU configuration. So if you open up CPU configuration, you might find one that's called, look under NX mode, see what that is. Scroll down on those options, and it'll tell you what those are a little bit. But there is a, yes, and that's the one you want to enable. So you have to follow the directions over on the right-hand side on the top. It'll tell you what to do, and you'll need to enable it, restart, and then that will get that error away from you. Okay, so move that to documents. So just copy it across. So yeah, if you just left click and drag it over there. No, into documents, right there. There you go. All right, just drop it. Source and destination files are the same. Oh, you already have it in documents. Okay. All right, hit cancel. All right, so now you need to hit add, and then go to documents, and then click on it, and click open, and then click choose, click start. Yay, now you're installing Ubuntu. All right, so you can work your way through there. There is nothing scary. So installation type, where it says erase that disk, that is that virtual drive. So you can click yes, erase the drive. Yep, you're going to install Ubuntu. So you're at the screen, so you're going to put in your name, the computer name, and then whatever username and password that you're going to use for it. You have to remember those. Again, it's a virtual one, so we can blow it away really easily, but you have to know what those are because it will not give you a chance to go back and go, oops, I forgot my password. What did I do? That is crazy. I would almost try to re-download and see what's... Is it almost... Holy cow. I'm going to guess this computer is fed off of the little cheapy Giganet switch that's down there that's not very great. All right. Oh, it's got to do Windows updates now, too. Great. All right. So it will churn and grind away. What does yours say? Click the little X's up there so you can see the top of your screen. There you go. It's actually grinding away. So, as we install this, so it's running, it's installing. Ubuntu is similar to Windows 10. Honestly, it's got actually more features than Windows 10. So we can also install Windows 10 and some other stuff, and we will. This is our first take on installing a virtual system. Included with it, it's got a word processor. It's got a spreadsheet. It's got games. It's got an image editor that's far more powerful than Paint. So it just takes a while, depending on the speed of the computer, how far it is to go through there. All right, remember whatever you put in for a username and password you need to remember. And so that's why I just put them in the title. I just used that Peru 2019 because it's hanging around all over the place. So now yours, does it finally? All right, so now you can start the VirtualBox again. And you can curse because the Edge browser is a horrific thing. Does anybody like Edge browser? Oh, no. That's a pass-fail question right there now. It's actually not so bad on some of the stuff, honestly. All right, yep. Just start VirtualBox again. And so now, hopefully it'll actually start. And it should say, oh yeah, I can see where you're at. Yes. Okay, because what you're erasing is that virtual drive. You're not erasing the actual hard drive of that computer. If I handed it to you on a flash drive and you booted off that flash drive the whole computer, then that would be scary. And so then it just gives us a series of questions, and now it's downloading and unpacking and installing. So the one thing that I think is interesting is I can now install Windows 10 in about the same amount of time I can Ubuntu. It used to be Windows 10 was a very long install, and now Windows 10 is pretty sharp and snappy. But depending on which computer you're on, because we have these all the way back from 2011 vintage to last year's vintage, how fast this runs is dependent on what processor's in there, how much memory it's got, the speed. So some of these are pretty snappy. Some of them are a little on the pokier side. Sadly, yours should be one of the faster ones, but apparently your download is really, really slow. So some of these are newer Ryzens, and some of them are all the way back to, well, who knows what's in here. All kinds of fun stuff. Oh, it's almost done. All right. So just like a regular computer, when I'm done, well, I'm going to restart it. Now, VirtualBox tries to pull that installation medium out there. So when I come back, and I'll show you here in a second, oh, it says please remove it. Okay. So if it does not, and you get an error like that, notice it says, oh, the drive is empty. So now I can go in and hit enter. It takes it back out for me. So the same way if you're booting a computer and you've got a CD in it, you have to take it out so that it doesn't try to boot off that CD or the flash drive. And so now it's going to run for the first time as a brand new copy of Ubuntu. And it's going to ask for that username and that password. And if I don't have it, I'm already going to be, well, out of luck. So let me hang here for a second. All right, so it says, yep, I'm Brad. And my password then is Peru 2019. And hopefully I remembered those correctly. Erase it and start over. There is no way to reset a password like you can in a Windows machine. If it was the only thing installed on your computer, erase it and start over. There is no way to get in there. Yep, install. Yep. Holy cow. So make sure you have your optical drive pointed to that file. All right, so it likes to do, so they've got a single sign-on and other things. We're going to skip that. If you're using this all the time, it's kind of handy. but we're going to skip that. And I don't really need any of that. Skip, next, 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 done. All right. So what I end up with is a screen that looks like this. I can make this screen the same size as what I have out here on my resolution. So we can look at ways to do that. But for now, I just want to look at what's inside of there. So already so it said, yeah, whatever, I'll install them. This is kind of my start button down here. And inside of there, I can find all of my apps that are in here. And right now, there's not a huge number. But I have, for example, LibreOffice. And so this should look a lot like a word processor you're familiar with. It looks like an older version of Microsoft Word. It will do everything. Thunderbird is equivalent to Outlook. It's an email client. You can find your files. So LibreOffice is open. There is a ton of software out there you can get on Ubuntu. So I'm going to click on their little software icon as it slowly goes there. And so it's also doing an update, and it's running inside that virtual environment. So I've closed that. Close LibreOffice. So I've already got a folder here where I can store documents. Right now it's downloading software. So here, this is my local software. I'm going to close it. There are thousands upon thousands of different programs available that you can run on this. So once you get this downloaded and you want to experiment with it, great. You can figure out how to make this bigger. So right now it's in a default screen resolution. I can change that resolution. So I could make it take up the entire 4K screen, which is what I have floating over there. I can do almost anything I want with this. If I want software, this is kind of where this is a great advantage, because if I want finance software, for example, there should be showing. Why is it not showing me? A ton of different software in there. If I click on education or games, I should see a whole ton of it. Has some weird glitch why it's not pulling that up. It may be because it's doing a Windows or a Ubuntu update. So there are a couple of things you'll notice on these virtual machines. It's slower than your native computer because it's a nest. It's like it's inside of a nest. If my computer's more powerful, I don't notice it at all because we're not going to notice those things. It's an entire operating system. We don't have to pay for anything. It's far more secure than Windows. I have alternatives. Uh-oh, you're still going? Did you start? There it goes. Oh. So yours also doesn't have virtualization turned on. So I'll show you how to get that in just a second. And yours is installing? Yep. Perfect. All right, let's see where you guys are at over here. So still installing. It takes a while to install it in there. It grinds away and it grinds away. But it's kind of interesting because I can have Ubuntu. And I could say maybe I really wanted to try a different version of Linux. And I wanted to try Red Hat. I can go do the same thing that we just did. I can put Red Hat in here. I can have as many different virtual operating systems on this computer as I want. And depending on the computer, I can run multiples of these at the same time. These are probably a little more limited on these computers you guys are on right now, just because they've only got 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM. On my computer, I'm regularly running 4 to 5 operating systems at one time. And it will handle it. And that's where that advantage of those multi-core processors, so something like a new Ryzen or some of the new Intel, handles that really, really well. And if you've spent stupid amounts of money and you've got something like a Threadripper, it's really great. You don't even notice it at all that you've done that. So we'll finish this up. We're on Wednesday. We're going to do ZenMap and a couple of other command line things live so you can see what the difference is between just doing the simulation and doing a actual on your computer. It's a little different experience, I think. And so we're going to work on those. Yours is installing. Yours, if you want to, here, let me close the recording and I'll show you how to fix that real quick.